everybody. Hope you're doing well today. Welcome to Sup Connect Live. We do this every Thursday and we get to talk to great people in the world of paddling. A legend today, a true water woman who has done so much in stand-up paddling and a lot of other things. In, on, around, under the water, everywhere. True water woman. Morgan Hoesterey we have today, seeing if she's finding us. I love you tell me the weather where you're from too. Love seeing where you're from. Once again, paddle club from Macedonia, and it's sunny there. It is not sunny here in Southern California, but that's not why I'm wearing the hat. I always try to find something that relates to the person that I'm talking to. Water Groms. I wonder if she's under Water Groms today. That's how we might invite her. A true Cali girl, and definitely someone who did a lot of firsts in stand-up paddling. So excited to talk to my friend today, Morgan Hoesterey. And, oh, there she is. I didn't know if you were Water Groms today, but you are Morgan as Morgan. Ocean is what it says on her Instagram, and that's a very good one. Beautiful last name, a little challenging spelling. Hoesterey, right?
Sorry.
Hi, puppy.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, can hear you great.
Okay, sorry, I was on the wrong account, so I had to
Yeah,
switch
no
it up
problem. I saw Water Groms, which I knew was you, so I know you have
Yes.
quite a few things going on, as always, in life. Thank you for joining me today.
Thanks for having me. I'm stoked that you asked me.
Look how bundled up I am. I had a tank top on, an M to O, because that's one of the many things we'll talk about, and I also have a bark hat on.
Oh, good for you.
But I look like it's freezing, huh? It's not that
It does look a
cold.
little chilly. It's pretty hot. It's warm right now. It was cold this morning, but
Oh, I'm wimpy. It's windy and like cloudy outside. Therefore, it must be cold. I'm inside, so who knows?
yeah. I'm
True
also a big
California.
baby when it comes to cold, so I get it.
So you're a California girl your whole life?
Yeah, I grew up in Irvine. I'm gonna walk my dog out. See how that goes. Yeah, I grew up in Irvine, and then after high school, I went to Hawaii, and I was there for about 15 years, and now I'm back. So
Yes. So we'll talk about all of those places.
yes.
Water, I think, was a part of your life from early on. You're a swimmer and all the way through top level college swimmer. So when did you first start that? Was that the first water experience?
Swimming? Yeah, I learned how to swim before I learned how to walk. So my
Wow.
parents threw me in the pool when I was about 6 weeks old. And my dad used to tell this story. We went to this Australian swim school, and they just throw you in, and they wait for your instincts to take over. But my instincts took a little longer to take over than most people. So when it came up, I was kind of like coughing and spitting. And he said that it was one of the most intense things that he's ever experienced firsthand, just like watching someone throw your kid in the pool and just let him go.
Wow.
But yeah, I mean, I learned how to swim well before I could walk, and I've been swimming ever since.
Yeah, that's totally amazing. And of course, Irvine in Orange County, California here, for those who are from, we get people from all over the world,
yes.
is close to the coast too. So what was your first ocean experience? Did your family go to the beach or?
Yeah, I grew up, my dad was a big water guy, and so I grew up around boats, and we went to Catalina a lot, and I've always loved the ocean. I've always kind of gravitated towards the beach. I remember being a kid, the sand took me a minute to get used to. Now I love it, but when I was a kid, I was one of those like, I don't want to get sandy. So, but yeah,
You're not alone.
I spent most of my time in the pool though, actually. So when I was from about 9 until 25, I trained all the time and was trying to make Olympic teams there for a while. And so that takes up a lot of time. So it didn't leave a lot of like ocean time, but still pool time, which is good.
The same. I grew up close to you here and kind of regretted that I didn't try even surfing. But, when you swim before and after school every single day.
It's just there's no time. I mean, but I think being a swimmer really helps with being a surfer because you can paddle, which is nice because you see a lot of beginner surfers and they like the main thing that they struggle with is paddling through the like the strength. So when I was little, my dad again taught me how to surf, and when we went, he said that it used to blow his mind because when we would go out to Trail 2, and we would go there because we don't like people. So we would go to, because nobody else goes there, but it's not the best break in the world. So Trail 2 at San Onofre. And whenever a big wave would come, I would just ditch my board and start swimming through it. It was like a little like 8-year-old, whatever, just swimming through the waves. And he was like, I've never seen anyone approach being stuck inside quite in that way. But that's where the swimming thing gives you a lot of confidence, and it helps a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. And being comfortable in the water. And we talk
Yeah.
about safety and everything. And it still blows my mind that people do water sports that don't know how to swim. I mean, it's not, we want people to find that love of water, but wow, going up out on a stand-up paddleboard when you can't like swim to wherever when you fall off
It's
is,
interesting, and a lot of people do it. And like, similar to you, it's kind of mind blowing. It's like, well, if you fall in, you're going to have to swim. And I think people sometimes don't put the two and two together. So swimming is a
yeah.
good base layer for all of the rest of the stuff.
It is. I think it should be taught in school. My dad's from the Midwest, and he said you had to pass a swimming test to graduate from high school. Why we don't do that coastally, I think everybody just makes the assumption, but it's kind of a privilege thing. Like you need to have a family that cares enough and has money to put you in swimming lessons, probably to learn
For
to
sure.
swim.
Well,
And
because
that's
swimming
why,
it's
yeah,
hard. So if you don't want to swim, then swim lessons aren't fun and they're kind of boring and they're difficult. So I think it's easy for a lot of people to pivot out of swim lessons. But I mean, you were like me, you grew up as a swimmer too, so you got in early.
yeah. Mom taught swimming lessons, so
Oh,
I was
that's
hanging
that's
around the
helpful.
pool, but I didn't get thrown in the water at the Australian swim
Yeah.
school. That's a good story.
Yeah.
So water has always been, and boating and everything, and I know that's a huge part. Catalina, we were together last weekend in Catalina. Have you counted how many times you've been there if you started when you were a kid?
Um, Probably not. It'd be hard to count, but I do have, if we could divert to you for a second, how did your crossing go? Does everyone know that you were the first stand-up team to ever do the Wild Buffalo Relay? That's
Yeah.
exciting.
Well, it's been done many times by stand-up. So some people are like, you're the first to cross. No, not the first,
Oh
just
yeah.
within this actual event, an outrigger event that is so open to all craft. And they wanted to know that it was good. It was long. It was, not ideal
Oh,
conditions,
the wind
but
was horrible. There's only one wind that could maybe have been worse, and that's if it came from the other side.
yeah, but that left side paddling the whole time, it gets is a little hard on the body when you want to paddle on both sides. But you know
Yeah.
that well in the different kinds of paddling. But stand up, we are quite affected by the wind, so we took kind of a southerly course, thinking we'd get pushed too far. So it ended up adding a couple miles. Not sure if that was the right decision, but we had a blast. It's still fun. It's such a great experience crossings, and we'll talk
Right.
more about those because you've been a trendsetter in those and the first to do some different ones. And that's kind of your adventure and endurance paddling. But I want to go back to the very beginning. Where did you first try stand up or see it, and what'd you think of it?
I was actually very resistant to stand up for a long time. I was teaching surf lessons in Hawaii. So after I stopped swimming, I was working on a boat. I worked as a boat captain on the west side. I was helping run whale and dolphin watching tours. And
Cool.
then my kind of side job was I taught surf lessons on Waikiki. And when the manager of the surf school, she left to start, her name's Karen LaRue, and her brother Jeff Chang, they broke apart and started Wet Feet Hawaii.
Oh,
And
cool.
she asked me to go with her, and because I was one of the more responsible people in the surf lesson community, so she's like, why don't you come with us and do the stand-up retail thing? And so I was sort of looking for a switch, and so I was like, okay, I'll go. And Jeff was like, well, if you're gonna work here, you need to do the thing. And I was like, I don't have time. I have surfing and freediving and boats, like all the things. I don't have time for stand-up, but thanks for the offer. And then one day I heard Jeff talking to this guy in the store, and they were talking about the Molokai channel, and that sounded really interesting because I was like, okay, now that's something that I could kind of get on board with. But I knew nothing about it. I knew nothing about downwind paddling or channel crossings or anything. So I asked Jeff, I was like, do you think that if I trained, I could do that race? And then the guy that he was talking to like looked me square in the face and was like, that was a race for watermen. You could never do that race. I was like,
Ooh.
oh, really? And that was all it took. And that was kind of the beginning of, I remember seeing Jeff kind of almost like shaking his head because he knew what had just happened. And I looked at him, I was like, will you help me? He was like, yes, I'll help you. And that was in May of 2008. And then that Molokai was in July of 2008. So it was a very, very short learning curve. But I just followed Jeff around, and he was so nice, and he taught me what bumps were and bump riding and all of the stuff. So I kind of learned stand up backwards. I didn't start like most people do in like really flat water. I was like, just take me out there and throw me into it, and then I'll learn the rest of the stuff later. And that's kind of how it all happened.
I did not realize that's what you started
Oh,
with.
really?
If
Yeah,
those of you
some guy
don't
was like, you couldn't do that race.
understand
I
what
was
that
like, okay,
is,
watch
yeah,
me.
this is an insane not an insane race, but definitely a challenging race. One of those that people who have paddled for years still sort of look at as aspirational. So the fact that you would start with being the very first woman to do that. So,
Well,
well,
I just got there first. There were two women, Andrea Moeller and her partner Maria Sousa, I think her last name was, but they were there first, and I have a hard time really claiming the first woman to, like you, the same way that you just answered that question. So I just got there first, and it was all because like some dude was like, "Oh, you can't do it." But if I knew then what I knew now about channel crossings, I don't think that that would have started that way, because I was way in over my head. One thing about that first channel crossing too is I think that I have the record for the longest it has ever taken somebody to cross the channel in the race time zone. I was 8:54, and they cut you off at 9 hours. So I'm officially the slowest person to
oh,
ever.
come on.
But
No,
it was
people
just
have
because I
not
didn't know what
made
I was
it
getting
and have
myself
had
into at the time.
You're so funny. You're so humble about stuff like that.
I just
There's
have a hard
people
time
who have
being
been
like,
cut off who haven't made the cutoff. So you're not the slowest.
that's everywhere. Sorry about that.
No, that's great. So starting with a channel crossing with a challenge, and Jeff Chang, what a great guy in Hawaii he's one of
Jeff
those quiet
is,
ones who's done so much for the sport.
yeah, he's the most amazing and most understated water. I don't use the word waterman very often. It's kind of a hard word, you know, just depending on who you talk to. But Jeff Chang is a waterman. He's the embodiment of the word. He's one of the world's top 5 best people for sure. And yeah, I mean, just following Jeff around, you'll learn a lot. So
That's great.
he's the guy. Yeah.
Well, I am not as afraid to use the word. I know that in Hawaii, especially, they're very particular, but you are a water woman. Like, if
I
you aren't,
appreciate
who
that.
is?
I think it's okay if someone else calls you that, but if you come in hot being like, I'm a waterman, it kind of is a little off-putting for some people. So I enjoy spending my time in the water, and
Yes.
I'll leave it at that. Yes.
Yeah. Well, you're not going to leave it at that, because we're going to talk a lot about
Oh yeah,
all
we'll
the
talk
ways
about
you
it.
enjoy the water. It's funny because one of the things they ask me, SubConnect, like, what's their specialty? And that is almost impossible to identify with you. I mean, what do you not do in Sub? You just mentioned you were a surfer and a swimmer before. You've already thrown out, and we're going to talk about free diving. I have like little things like my free diving
Oh,
card.
nice.
So in the water, under the water, on top of the water, you have done most of it. I had the Bark hat on. Shout out to Joe Bark, who's such a great guy. Of course, makes stand-up paddleboards too, but is best known for traditional paddleboarding. And you are very top in that also.
Well, so definitely shout out to Joe, and Joe is amazing. And he was one of those first guys too, that when everyone else was kind of like, I don't know if this is a good idea, Joe's like, here, let me help you. So Joe, I wouldn't be where I am now today for sure without Joe Bark. So that's worth mentioning. But and prone, I wouldn't call myself a top prone person. I prone paddle because I like to be able to keep up with whoever's going to play at any point in time. So if there's a group of prone guys that are going to do a downwind, I want to be proficient enough that I'm not the last person holding everybody else up, if that makes sense. But I have a love-hate relationship with prone. It's really hard.
Yeah.
But it is. It's like all of this
yeah,
right up
yeah.
here. And
I've done much less than you, but when I broke my leg and I had to be on the water, I was a prone paddler for 6 weeks, and I've done it
I mean,
a
it's a
couple
good
other
way
times.
to be out. And I will say that it's the closest that I've ever felt to body surfing, not actually body surfing. So you're down low, and your perspective on the bumps and all the things sort of changes. And it's just a different, I think that I learned how to stand up paddle in bumps after I learned how to prone.
Super good point. I think you just have such a better feel for the water when you're down there in it.
Mm-hmm.
But you also have water splashing in your eyeballs, turning.
You do. It's brutal. It's like all of it. It's like being waterboarded, just like Chinese water torture, plus like muscle pain. All of it is really difficult.
And I love that crew, for the most part, except for the sort of Australian surf racing stuff. The tradition seems to be really long distance endurance kind of paddles, but you have done many of those. And Joe Bark, like you know, throws together these crazy, let's paddle over to Catalina and do the Catalina Marathon and then paddle back.
Yeah, Joe's kind of like a master of the type 2 fun. You know, it's like the fun that's not fun while it's happening, but when you're drinking beers around a fire afterwards, it's super fun to talk about. And Joe is the master of that. Yeah. He likes coming up with diabolical schemes to test your I did that paddle roam paddle with him on the very first year that he did it, and I had no idea that walking, because I don't run at all ever. I was like, how hard could walking the Catalina Marathon be? It can't be that bad. I'll just walk. It was the worst thing I have ever done. It was so hard.
It's
And
so hilly. There's no flat in Catalina.
there's 9,000 feet of elevation change. It's like the fourth most difficult marathon in the US, which, by the way, Joe neglected to tell me. Yeah, so but he loves that stuff. And that whole crew is so fun because, you know, they all just call each other up and everyone's just down to do it.
Yeah, totally awesome. Yeah.
Amazing.
I think a few people, yeah, have been absolutely shocked that have said yes to that by what it's all about, but it's fantastic. And you mentioned type 2 fun. I was going to bring that up because I think that is one of your, did you develop the definition of that or do other people?
No, it's in the
It's
adventure
official.
world. Like for the freediving thing, we always tell people that, you know, we live inside our comfort zone for the most part. People as in general, you know, right now, well, this might be a little bit outside my comfort zone because I don't usually like talk to cameras and stuff, but
thank you.
But for the most part, we like to stay in our comfort zone. But then, and in the adventure world, that's type 1 fun. That's only fun. No anxiety, only fun. And then outside of that is your stretch zone. And your stretch zones are things that are like challenging but attainable. So a little bit scary, but not overly scary. And in the adventure world, they call that type 2 fun. And then type 3 fun is where you have to like eat your socks to survive or something like that. It's all anxiety, only stress, and you would never want to do it again. So, but the thing about type 2 fun that's really cool is type 2 fun is a big growth zone for everybody.
Yes.
So for stand-up, for example, if you're like a new stand-up paddler and you want to go out into waves for the first time, it's super intimidating, right? Because you have all these things that you have to figure out how to do. But then once you paddle into a breaking wave and get over that wave for the first time, that was probably really scary the first time you tried it. But then immediately after you got over that wave, your confidence level goes up a little bit because you're like, oh, I did the thing once, now I can do it again. So type 2 fun is a really good way in whatever sport you've chosen to do to sort of grow your potential, I guess we'll say.
Yeah. I totally agree. And that's the truth. And more recently, I was going to do this later. I became last year a free diver, and my instructor was Morgan. I love some of the stories about how it seems like you almost accidentally got into this just because from swimming, and whether it's heredity and your natural, but you can hold your breath for a long time and you kind of didn't find this as hard as most of us. This was a little bit outside my comfort zone, but stoked
it is
that
for
I did
a lot
it.
of people. For me, I mean, there's definitely aspects of freediving, and freediving for people who might not know is you just basically hold your breath and go dive. But people have this idea of freediving that you have to go 100 feet or 200 feet or whatever. If you've ever held your breath in a pool, you're basically a freediver. So it's one of those things that there's levels to it. But I do think because I grew up swimming at such a young age that the water has always been such like a comfort zone for me. So I don't necessarily have a lot of the same anxiety that a lot of the new people that come in have, because for a lot of people, the ocean's a very foreign environment to them. And for me, land is a really foreign environment to me. I mean, if I trip all the time, I'm clumsy. On land, I've been told that I'm like a special needs giraffe.
Oh, you are.
It's just true. There was a beach volleyball coach that I was training with, and he pulled me aside. He's like, I don't want you to take this the wrong way, but you look like a special needs giraffe with an inner ear problem. I was like, thank you. That's great. Thanks,
I don't want you to take this the wrong way. That's kind of a brutal definition.
But it was so funny
and
true. It was almost the best description that I've ever heard of myself. But anyway, that's how I feel. That in any case, that's how I feel on land, and in the water, all of that goes away. So back to freediving for a lot of newer people, the thought of going head down to the bottom of the ocean is really scary. For me, I kind of feel like I'm like going to find my people, you know? So I know how weird that sounds, but that's just kind of how it is.
Yeah, no, that's wonderful. I don't want to give away everybody should take this who's in the water in any way, because I learned so much about like some of our natural reflexes and putting your face in and all the different techniques, what breathing can do to relax you, to hype you up. There's just so much about breath. And I think there's actually a lot out there right now above water, not just free diving, like the Wim Hof stuff and everything.
For sure.
It's important.
Oh yeah, there's kind of a breath control exercise for everything. So just like you said, if you want to wake up in the morning, you can breathe to wake up. If you want to go to sleep at night, you can breathe to go to sleep. And I'm a person who I have a lot of anxiety. So for me, I find myself breathing through anxiety quite a bit. And I haven't quite mastered how to really mitigate the anxiety, but I will say that just by slowing down your breathing and sort of paying attention to what's happening in your body, you can really control what's happening in your brain. And for anxiety people like me, it's a really important skill. Um, but water training in particular is a really good way to do that because you're inherently having your face in the water. So it causes you not to breathe as often, which like you said, there's a lot of physiological changes that happen to you. Your heart rate slows down, your blood shifts to the center of your body, and it shifts your state from a sympathetic state, which is a really high arousal, like stressed out state, to a parasympathetic state, which is your kind of rest and digest state. So learning how to breathe in the right way is a really good way to sort of manage everyday life.
Yeah. It wasn't directly what we were learning in free diving, but my husband noticed sometimes when I'm stressed, I am intentional breathing very slowly and intentionally. Like he can hear me like,
Yes.
what's up? Like just a lot
In
on
the
my
free
mind
diving,
right
I mean,
now.
you probably remember in the free diving thing, we teach people because a long exhale will lower your heart rate. So if you know nothing else about breathing and you're stressed out and you want to calm yourself down, just like you said, just slow it down and do long exhales. So we teach people to hiss it out like and that will regulate the speed of your exhale. So Lizzie and Jimmy from Quick Blade, their daughter Sydney helps me all the time, and she helps me with all of the freediving stuff, and I can always tell. And there's another girl, Whitney Erickson, that also helps me out. And both of them now, you can tell when they're stressed because they'll be sitting somewhere, and you'll be like, you're like, okay, I'm just gonna like give them a minute.
Give
but it
them
really
some
works.
space. They're hissing it out.
Just slowing it down really helps.
Yeah. Super great advice. Fantastic. Well, let's go backwards again. So you did, your first experience stand-up paddling was working in a short time and doing an solo crossing Molokai to Oahu, the most beautiful channels in the world, the color of the water there, but crazy. It's called the Channel of Bones. But you also did all of the islands and made a documentary. And I have an autographed copy of it.
Oh, good for you.
Can you still buy it?
It's probably worth $2. I think that you
it.
can actually. I actually, when I was looking for photos for you, when you asked for photos, because I couldn't find the drive that they were all on, so I Googled imaged myself, and a lot of those came up for how to buy it. I was like, oh wow, it's like on Amazon. That's cool.
Yeah. And I have a note in here. It says, thanks for supporting it. And is it Chris Aguilar?
Yeah, that's Chris Aguilar.
Okay.
So Chris was, I met Chris before I was really into stand up. We met at like a film conference kind of thing for the Travel Channel. And he and I were the only ones in the thing talking about surfing. And so we sort of gravitated towards each other right away. And when we decided that we were going to do that, he was kind of the first guy on board. We're like, no, you got to come do this thing, because he's a very talented filmmaker. I mean, in terms of how videos and stuff are made, he's such a good storyteller, and that's what really sets him apart from most other people.
Yeah.
And he's just a master at it. He's really good at finding the story in the story.
Yeah. And he's done amazing work in the traditional paddleboard community.
Oh, for sure.
Like you said, beautiful images and video, and tells an amazing story. So
he himself, he's such like a good person, and he's a very sensitive person. So I think that he's with that comes empathy. So with the empathy, he's able to sort of understand where people are coming from. And he's able to find, like, it's impossible to watch a Chris video without shedding like a tiny tear. It's like, sometimes it's really annoying. It's like, Chris, you got me again.
You got me. But yeah, that's the true sign of a great storyteller, like you said.
Mm-hmm.
So Christy's asking what it's called. So it's Destination 3 Degrees. And it was 2 of them. And tell us about this adventure and what it was for, a cause, and a good one.
Well, yeah, so Destination 3 Degrees was an idea that Jenny Kalmbach and I came up with. And Laird Hamilton and Dave Kalama and a few other guys, Kevin Horgan and Chris Owens, they had all done the Hawaiian channels already. But, and I just need to preface this by saying, when Laird and Dave did it, they did it in 7 days, and they rode their bikes across the island, and then they paddled across the channel. So what we did was different. We just wanted to do all of the channels and have adventures along the way. So we spent a little bit of time on each of the islands where we got to free dive or surf or just hang out. And So I initially, Jenny at the time, she had just won Battle of the Paddle that year, and she was kind of in the height. She was the girl there for a while. And Jenny's always been really nice and like down to earth. So I was like, I wonder if she'd want to do this thing. So I kind of brought it up to her, just like you brought this up to me. I was like, don't say no. And she's like, oh, I won't say no. She's like, let's go do it. And then so we decided that we would do all of the channels that link the Hawaiian Islands, and as a cause, both of us care about the plastic in the ocean issue.
Mm-hmm.
So we partnered with the Algalita Marine Research Foundation, who Captain Charles Moore and the Algalita, he was the first guy that discovered the Pacific gyre, the garbage patch that people talk about.
Mm-hmm.
And so we did it to sort of raise awareness for what they were doing, which at the time was pretty new. And more people know about it now, but at the time there weren't like a ton of people talking about it.
Yeah, I have to say that was, I mean, I do hear all about it, but I follow this kind of thing now. But this was my first, like the whole small plastic bits, all the stuff.
Yeah, and you know, it was so crazy because when we were paddling all these channels, we'd end up in remote areas of Hawaii that, you know, you're not landing on Waikiki Beach, you're landing on whatever obscure beach that you got to first, because it's the shortest distance between 2 points. And these beaches that were just so remote were just completely covered in plastic. And it was, you know, when you're doing these things, you sort of, you know that you're doing it for a cause, and it's fun to talk about, and I'm raising awareness. But the thing about doing adventures like this, you really get to see it, and then it gives you a better understanding of this thing that you're talking about, which is really cool. Absolutely. And that was I back in 2006, I was part of this documentary called A Message in the Waves, and I got to go to Midway Island for that, which was really cool. Midway is one of the northwestern Hawaiian islands. And at certain times of the year, the whole island is covered in laysan albatross. There's just birds everywhere. I mean, you have to like step over them to walk through the island. It's just amazing. And that was my first introduction to this, seeing those birds. And it was towards the end of the season, and this is a little dark, but their stomachs fill with plastic when they're out in the ocean. They're fishing to bring back to their chicks and all the things, and the plastic takes up all the room. So a lot of times they'll end up starving. Oh. So on Midway, as you're stepping around all these birds, there's a lot of like ones that have passed away and that are sort of like opening up, and their whole stomachs were full of plastic. And it was wow. I've never experienced anything that was so just impactful to me.
Yeah.
And even now I feel sort of like a hypocrite talking about it, because, you know, I could do better with the plastic thing too. But when you see it firsthand, it's like, wow, you hear that it's a problem, but this is actually a problem. This is actually happening.
Yeah.
And
wow.
But back to your adventure thing, it's sort of a good byproduct of adventure having, is you get to sort of experience things that you wouldn't otherwise have done. And that was a big part of our Hawaii trip. It was just so eye-opening. Just being out there, like you said, the color of the water in Hawaii is a really special color. And if you've ever done a channel crossing, I feel like you have to earn that color a little bit. It's not a color that I've ever seen anywhere else. I mean, you've done the channel, you know what it is. And when you're out there and you experience it and you see it, it's like the reward. It doesn't matter where you place. That's your reward right there, is like that electric blue color of the ocean is really, really cool.
Because I did it as a relay, somebody gave me the advice that when my turn was over, that I just needed to sink down underwater and just take it in.
That's great advice.
It's so clear, but such a intense blue.
It is. It almost, like, if you open your eyes underwater, it almost hurts a little because it's so bright, and it's this blue that you just don't see anywhere else. And
yeah. Luckily, I didn't see a great white when I did that. Like, because I know I've seen footage of under the water, like behind Connor Baxter or somebody, and there was a shark.
Yeah, they're out there, but
yeah, they're everywhere.
Yeah.
Just while I'm waiting for the boat, didn't seem like a good time that I would want to be seeing them.
Right. There is that moment when you're waiting for your relay partner, and you're like, could you guys just come over here a little faster? That'd be great.
So that's a couple of the amazing things you were doing while you were there. I didn't realize you'd worked retail as well as teaching and adventuring and starting these endurance trends. I'm going to say you are.
2008, 2010, like being a stand-up paddler for your job wasn't really accessible. As much as I would have wanted it to be, it was. And so there's all, you have to supplement your life in various ways. But luckily, like the retail thing is, I don't think now I would go back to retail, but I learned so much, mostly from being with Karen and Jeff in that environment, and the people that would come through Wet Feed. And I was sort of like a sponge at that time. I was just willing to absorb whatever I could from whoever would teach me whatever they wanted to teach me. And so I feel like all of these things, you know, with your jobs and all of the stuff, it all has a purpose, and they're all opportunities if you're there and have your eyes open to them and recognize the opportunity.
Yeah. Well, one other opportunity, which it was the first travel destination trip that I really, really, really wanted to go on, and I never did. But in Hawaii, you were offering downwind runs and but take time to hang in the hammock, underwater photography. You had this amazing, I think they were women's trips, were they? Or yeah.
Yeah.
That you did, that you put on for a while when you were living there. So I don't know how long or who got to take advantage of that, but I think that was the first time I just went, oh my God, that's like everything in a package.
Yeah, you know, Hawaii is like a playground, right? I mean, it's one of the reasons why I had to leave Hawaii is because it's a little too accessible, and I was having a hard time being responsible. So I was like, at some point I got to do the thing. So yeah, it's women's groups in particular are really cool, and stand-up paddling is a place that I've seen this more often than in other sports, is that the women, when you take a bunch of guys out of the picture, and this isn't like a guy girl thing, but women have the opportunity to not worry about what they look like. You don't have to worry about what you look like in a bathing suit or some person that you don't know judging you because you didn't get a wave. Like when you put a bunch of women together in an adventure type of setting, they all inherently come together and start supporting each other. And I feel like in life that doesn't always happen. Women can be really tough on each other. But in an adventure type situation, you put these women together and they start like supporting each other and giving each other tips and stuff. And that's kind of like my favorite thing. They celebrate each other and they do things, and it's different than everyday life. And it's such a cool thing.
Well, wonderful that you did that and you offered that. Thank you again. I didn't get to go, but it didn't
Missed
work
out.
out.
No, just kidding.
So
Wait,
destination.
well, you've done your own stand-up trips, right, in Mexico?
Yeah, actually, yes, I have been a part of that, usually just co-guiding, but yeah, super fun to be a part of any adventure. I'm all about all
For
types
sure.
of fun.
Yeah,
Um,
you're a yes sayer, which is what I like about you. I don't think that I've ever heard you be like, "No, I don't want to do that." You're like, "Let's do it."
well, another one I've said yes to but never made, and that I think is just what truly defines you as Water Woman, is that you've done the is it called Iron Mana, or that those Tahiti events
Yeah.
that are multi-day. You don't know what you're getting. They talk about being multidisciplinary, different water sport at you every day. Talk about that event. You've done that quite a
Yeah,
few times.
water mono was something that I fell into sort of backwards, but it was for a while there. I mean, so water mana, this guy named Stefan Lambert came up with it was called Iron Mana back in like 2008, and then Iron Man didn't like that he was sort of poaching on their name, so it's a water mana now. And he started off, it was in Bora Bora. So what we would do though is maybe 10 of us would start in a sailing canoe, you know, like what Moana has, like one of those open ocean sailing
Yes.
canoes. We would get in basically a sailing outrigger and sail the channels from Tahiti all the way to Bora Bora. So it was Tahiti
Wow.
to Moorea to Huahine, Raiatea, Taha. So there's 6 channels. And so every day, and the Moorea to Wahine one is about 110 miles. So it's a big crossing. You have like 3 people on your team, and so the whole thing started off with that way. And then once you got to Bora Bora, so this guy Stefan is the master of type 2 fun torture. He toes the line of making it really hard, but just not hard enough that you really like want to push him in the water, because a lot of times that you do. But his whole thing is he doesn't care if you win or what place you get. He comes up with challenges that are mentally and physically to see how much mental and physical pain you can tolerate, basically. So it's swimming, prone paddling, stand up, the sailing canoe, 6-man canoe. Some people do surf ski, but you have to show up with a certain mindset, because when you show up, he's not going to tell you what you're doing that day or what you're going to do tomorrow. He'll be like, show up on the beach at 8 o'clock, bring your paddle stuff, and then I'll tell you what you're doing. And so you just show up and he's like, okay, today we're paddling 30 miles around Bora Bora. And then he'll be like smoking a cigarette. He's like, when I'm done with my cigarette, then we go. And he'd be like, all right, done. And he'd be like, okay, let's go.
Let's
and then the
go.
next day he'd be like, okay, now we're going to do it on a prone board. And then you're like, okay. And then the next day he's like, now we're going to swim for 12 miles. And he just comes up with these things that are so brutal, but at the end of the day, you feel so good about what you've done. And after the week, you're pretty ready never to see the water ever again, except for that you're in Bora Bora, and it's the most amazing place in the world.
I was just going to say the pictures are just amazing. I mean, that's
They're
one
beautiful.
of the most, it's just gorgeous there. And then here you are doing these really hard tasks, but I've just never heard of
Tahitians
anything
are
like that.
amazing.
Yeah.
When you go anywhere in Tahiti, the Tahitians are so welcoming and so nice, and they bring you in and they treat you like you're part of their family. And in the beginning stages, the Tahitians didn't really have access to prone boards or anything, so they were taking their 25-inch wide plus stand-up boards and prone paddling like 30 something miles on these stand-up boards, and they wouldn't complain, they wouldn't do anything, they'd just be like, yep, this is great, let's do it again. It was amazing for so many reasons. And I'm so fortunate that Steph found me on the beach at Battle of the Paddle one day, and it was after the Destination 3 thing, and he invited Jenny and I to come, and so both of us were like, yeah, let's do it. And after that, it was, I looked forward to that more than anything else. But now he's on Huahine, and I think just because of COVID, they're not running them right now, but hopefully they'll come back, because those were amazing.
Yeah, let us know about that, because it's just such an amazing thing that you've competed in, probably more than anybody else. Seems like most people I know went once.
Yeah, I mean, I've probably done maybe eight of them, but I love to torture myself, though. That's the thing. It's like, I feel like everyday life gets a little mundane maybe, and torturing yourself is the best way to kind of give yourself something to look forward to and also take you out of what you go through every day. So I feel like you learn a lot when you're torturing yourself, because then when you torture yourself in an adventure type setting, it teaches your brain how to tolerate it when you're being tortured in your everyday life, whether it be stress or not torture, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I use the word torture very loosely.
Yeah. Type 2 fun. Let's go back to that definition, because you define that so well. So I want to get back to what you're doing now in the underwater stuff. It looks like you found a real niche that I have never thought about, how important it is with the water groms and
so
teaching little surfers.
So so Whitney Erickson and Sydney Terrell have been for the past like 3 or 4 years, we've sort of been developing this thing. And we have Waterlogged, which is the adult version, and we have Water Groms, which is the kid version. But when I became a PADI freediver instructor, it was because I needed a change in my life, and I was like, okay, this is something new, let's give it a try. And I tried it, and it wasn't really my favorite thing, but I do like teaching people, and I like the breathing aspect or whatever, and I like being in the pool. So there's a swimming component, kind of surfing component, like how to sort of like help with wipeouts, and then also the breath hold component. But then I quickly found that nobody's doing anything like that for kids. Like, people won't really teach kids how to free dive. PADI, you have to be 12 to get a basic freediver thing, and even for that, it's just a pool session. They won't take you out into the ocean. So what we did is we came up with a pool session for kids that goes through different experiences that you would encounter out in like a surfing type situation. So we have a set of drills that are slow and steady drills. So when you feel like you're panicking and whatever, we practice slowing down and calming down. And then we have kind of like a mental clarity section that we call it. I watch a lot of Survivor, so we've taken a lot of the Survivor challenges and sort of like adapted them to the pool and make you on a high heart rate with a breath hold solve problems underwater, and those are my most favorite ones. And then we do straight up high heart rate wipeout drills, so we get their heart rate up super high and just make them passively hold their breath until the ocean releases you. I mean, if you've ever been in a wipeout situation, you know that you're not in control of when you get to come up. The ocean's in control. So you just have to sort of manage yourself until the ocean gives you the opportunity to come back up again. So it's fun. I mean, we have 6-hour classes that we do, and we've been working with a lot of the surfy kids around here. Here in Southern California, these kids are being groomed to be professional surfers at like 9 years old. So we try to get a hold of the 9-year-olds, so 9 to 13-year-olds, and we just try to make them more comfortable and confident in the water. So when an unpleasant situation does arise, that they're prepared for it.
Yeah. Well,
and also a lot of adults too.
Yeah. Having taken your class, and I think Susie's saying something here. Breath hold classes with Morgan are amazing. Totally agree. And the confidence I mean, I'm a water person and I understand it, but almost too much that, you know, being held down is not something, when you
No,
understand water
it's
enough,
not great.
I don't want to drown, you know, but all the things that I learned about, you know, that when you gasp for air, that's not gasping for air. That's what we call it, but it's not that you need oxygen right then. And that's something that you can mentally go through was mind blowing to me.
Did that
So,
help you?
oh, so much. I had no idea that when your body goes, that, you know, it's CO2 and it's not, I need oxygen right now. It's something you can mentally go through. And that, oh, that makes me feel so much better underwater. My
Yeah, well,
favorite
just
kind
a
of
quick note
Morgan.
about Susie. Susie came in, and Susie's Susie's a much better athlete than she ever gives herself credit for. And she'll come in, she's like,
Susie.
"Oh, I'm not gonna be good at that. I'm not gonna do whatever." And then she busts out these like amazing things all the time. I've always like everything that I've ever seen Susie do. And the breath hold thing was the same. You know, she was sitting and doing her statics, and static breath hold is when you put your face in the water and just hold your breath. And I think she surprised herself. And just so a note about Susie is you're much better than you think you are. And
Yes, she is.
but yeah, so back to what you said about the carbon dioxide, learning what your body is experiencing when you're holding your breath underwater is a really good way to elevate your confidence. So if you can, like you said, understand that when you feel that urge to breathe, it's a very primal feeling. You know, it's your body being like, hey, your oxygen, carbon dioxide levels are off and you need to take a breath. But all that is your brain signaling to your lungs that you're in trouble when, I love you too, Susie. It's your brain signaling to your lungs, hey, something's wrong. And it's carbon dioxide that creates that feeling. And that's the feeling that for most people causes the most amount of panic.
Yeah.
So understanding that is a big for me is a big I find myself all the time if I'm out freediving or when we're doing pool sessions or whatever, I'll be like, okay, this is carbon dioxide. This isn't me low on oxygen. This is just carbon dioxide. I can learn to work through this. And just practicing working through it is a big skill, I think.
Yeah.
And carbon dioxide is actually really, if you don't care anything at all about freediving, learning to tolerate higher levels of carbon dioxide will actually help you in whatever sport you've chosen to do. By learning to tolerate it, it will help you recover faster. It will help you work harder for longer. So for like surfing, if you want to catch more waves, if you have a higher level of carbon dioxide tolerance, you can paddle longer and faster, get out to the line up first and catch more waves than all of your friends. So there are different ways that you can use the carbon dioxide training, even if freediving is not your thing, which for a lot of people it's not.
Cool. So highly recommend this class to everybody. And she was just, you know, Morgan was just explaining. So it's Waterlogged is your Instagram for adults and Water Groms.
Yeah, we are waterlogged is the Instagram for, there's
okay.
a question about shallow water blackouts. Is it okay if I answer that question?
Sure.
Yeah, so for shallow water blackouts, that's one of the reasons. So in the pool sessions that we do, we have like a 4-to-1 instructor student ratio because shallow water blackouts, even if you're the best athlete, the best free diver, whatever in the world, you can have a shallow water blackout and it's a very serious thing. So the first thing that we teach people is how you should always be in the water with a buddy. And you should have a buddy that you're confident in their ability to save you. So a shallow water blackout typically happens if you're out freediving within 15 feet of the surface. So it's a good idea when you're out freediving to have someone know what your plan is. So when you're reaching the surface, they're there with you in case you do black out. If you do, and they handle it in the right way, you know, they protect your airway and get you up to the surface. It's not the most traumatic experience and you can overcome it, but shallow water blackouts are really, really dangerous when you're out alone. So if you're freediving alone or spearfishing alone or whatever, I had 2 separate friends in college and both of them passed away because they were doing breath hold training by themselves in the pool. And then people came the next morning and they were like, not there anymore. So I don't care how good of an athlete you are, shallow water blackout is always a big concern. And I would say that no matter if you are going to do underwater training, just make sure that the people that you're training with understand that the instructor to student ratio is very important, and having a bunch of people holding their breath sort of like willy-nilly all at the same time isn't maybe the best approach because it could happen to anybody.
Yeah. Well, you did all kinds of safety training with us and our buddies, and we had to practice that and everything as we should. But thanks, Jack is Surfrider Connecticut, and he also does race director for Stand Up and a
Oh,
surfer.
nice.
So yeah,
It's
cool.
it's a great question, and it's definitely a concern. Breath hold training in the pool is becoming a bigger and bigger thing. It's sort of popular. I mean, I think Laird made it popular, and then all sorts of different groups have sort of like brought their own variation to it. But yeah, at the heart of it, shallow water block, just making sure that you're safe and that you have someone there that you trust that knows how to handle the situation if something goes wrong is the most important thing that you can do.
Yeah. Well, you are a true waterman, water woman, water person, whatever you want to call it. And let's get back though to Stand Up and On Top of the Water. You were a top pro woman, and you could still be, but I know you keep being modest about all of that kind of stuff. You were in there early and you were racing besides the adventures and the endurance and the destinations. Did you have a favorite race or a type of race? Was it the long ones? Was it ocean?
I like the endurance things because of the mental. We call it Kevin the Brain Dragon, right? So when you're out there, Kevin the Brain Dragon comes and is telling you all the things that you can't do or everything that's wrong in your life. If you've got any sort of demons, Kevin will remind you out in the channel. He'll make sure that you remember how you were feeling about that thing. So for the endurance races, I appreciate that opportunity to sort of sort through my mental problems because I have quite a few of them. So it's my way of sort of coping with different things and going out and doing a long paddle. I enjoy the endurance races for that reason. And I also enjoy the adventure of it all. I don't necessarily care that much if I can paddle faster than somebody. What I do care a lot about is setting a goal for myself that might seem a little scary and making it to that goal. So whatever that's where the endurance stuff comes in. Yes, more torture, like torture. But in terms of stand-up paddle racing, my favorite for sure was Battle of the Paddle and then Pacific Paddle Games. But the surf races, I'm not the strongest paddler out there. I don't have a head for the technique and stuff, and I probably should work way more on it. But I do enjoy surfing a lot, so the surfing element of those races was a big like a leveler for me. It gave me a shot. So I really enjoyed those races. And plus, when there's waves and there's a little bit of fear and anxiety and that, it's kind of part of the whole experience. I mean, those surf races are so fun. Did you ever do the Huntington Beach one? The one where they made us wear helmets, like back in the day? It was like a long time ago. I can't remember.
I remember that
called.
one. I think I helped out because I didn't wear the helmet, so I must have been on the beach. But I remember that.
Yeah, the helmets. Yeah. We would all like laugh about them, but the Huntington Beach shore break is no joke, and getting in and out of those on a stand-up paddleboard. I mean, I've seen photos of Candace in that shore break. She's getting barreled on a board in like shore break, which are amazing. For most of us, it's just survival mode at that point. But I remember that race being super funny because we were all wearing helmets and it was goofy. Yeah. And
I do think helmets are smart though. Like I'm glad they put them on the kids when we had waves,
sure.
Especially that one time when it was at a little bit north of the usual Doheny.
That one was also brutal.
Yeah, that one needed helmets, but yes, exciting to watch, exciting to be a part of. So that's cool. So how about destinations you'd still like to paddle? I mean, you're such a water person and you boat captain. You were captaining at the Wild Buffalo Relay last weekend.
Yeah, I got to go with Jimmy Terrell and his partner. They did the 2-man iron on a 2-man outrigger. It was cool. They did great. The wind was just so awful that it was, I mean, my hat was off to all of you guys. I was just sitting on the boat and it was interesting.
It was bumpy on the boat.
Yeah,
but
I mean,
where have you not been?
Say again?
Where have you not been? Are there places you'd still like to see? Water?
I would really like to go to Fiji. I would really like to go to Indonesia. I'm in either one of those places. I would really like to do the channels in Tahiti, actually, on a but what I would like to do is, instead of doing them on the sailing canoe, because we've done that, and I have my friend Puatea Ellis, who's a Tahitian. She's on board, so we just have to like pull the trigger and do it. But I would like to do each of the channels on a different thing. So do one of them stand up, one of them prone, swim probably from Tahiti to Moorea, because that's only 9 miles, so that's a doable distance. And then maybe the long one on a 1-man or sailing canoe. So I'd like to do all of the channels on a different thing. That's sort of an adventure that I've had in my brain since like 2012. You're right. I hate that so much when it goes down the wrong pipe.
don't know where that came from.
Yeah.
Keep talking. What else?
Yeah, no, well, so that's one that's definitely on the radar. Again, I would like to go surf in Indonesia. That would be fun. There's really nowhere that I don't want to go except for maybe cold places. I'm not real into the cold, so if it's warm, I want to go there. I see videos sometimes of that guy Casper because he puts out videos of himself stand-up paddling in like the ice and stuff. I'm like, what is wrong with that guy? Like, that's so crazy. Come to actual Hawaii.
I know. It's all slushy. It's
Oh,
wild.
brutal. He's
I didn't
tough,
even know
man.
the ocean got like that.
Yeah.
Yes,
For a while we had thought about trying to do the up in between Russia and Alaska. There's a channel up there, and so we had thought about doing that, but the logistics behind that were like, it's real cold up there, so it was hard to motivate for that one.
Yeah, and I bet weather is probably ever changing, and
and during the winter you can actually walk across the channel because it's all frozen over. Well, the channel, there's 2 islands in the middle, and so there's a stretch of it. So to go from the US to Russia, you could potentially walk it if you wanted to at certain points in time or certain years, but yeah, that's a little cold. It's too much.
Yeah. Have you been to La Ventana? Because Susie's inviting you, Ricky Bobby.
Oh. Okay, yeah, let's do it. I have not been there, but everyone who has been there says that it's awesome.
Yeah, that's a close adventure.
Well, yeah, it's easy to get to from here, right?
Yeah, super. Yeah. Just other side of Baja. So the picture that we used is amazing. You took it as a GoPro, you can tell that. But there's sharks in the water, and I have seen some epic pictures of you with sharks. So you got to tell the shark stories.
So I always tell people with the shark thing, when you see sharks are scary for a lot of people. It's like, for most people, that's their biggest fear and their biggest thing that keeps them out of the ocean. But when you see a shark swimming underwater for the first time, it kind of changes your perspective because they're not out to get you. It's not a Jaws situation. They're not like, oh my God, there's a person, let me go get it. Actually, they're really shy. They kind of want nothing to do with you. But one of my best friends, her name is Liz Parkinson, and she lived in the Bahamas. I think she's in Thailand or somewhere now, but she would dive with sharks all the time, and she's a really, really good free diver. So I had the opportunity to go and meet all of her sharky friends. So we got to free dive with tigers for the first time, and bull sharks and hammerheads and all sorts of things. And I will say that it's a much different experience being on top of the water with sharks swimming underneath you than being underwater when you can see what they're doing. Mm-hmm. Like that photo, those are black tip reef sharks in Tahiti, and they're basically like little dogs, so they're not really super scary. But if that was a bunch of like tiger sharks, that would be a very intimidating situation. When you see them underwater, you can kind of understand them a little bit better, which is really cool. When you're up on top of the water and you kind of can't figure out what their intentions are, that's a whole different experience. But yeah, sharks they're amazing. They're kind of like dinosaurs, right? They've been around forever, and they're so perfectly suited to the environment, and they're so beautiful. And when you watch them swim for the first time, it's just amazing. Yeah.
Cool. Well, that's amazing that you've done that. Yeah. We'll have to I'll do a little update. You maybe send me another one of those pictures.
Yeah, I feel super grateful to have had that opportunity, because without Liz, there's no way I would have been able to do it. But yeah, we got to go out to like Bimini and Grand Bahamas and chase sharks around. It was pretty cool.
Wonderful. Well, I hope you keep adventuring and doing great stuff. Keep up all this great underwater. I know you get to come and coach us sometimes, which we love having Coach Morgan. Yeah. You are a great stand-up paddleboarder, so don't listen to her when she does these self-deprecating statements about.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, tell AV that I'm ready for the Morgan Olympics soon. I've been promising him for a while, so.
Okay, I will let him know if he's not listening, or he should be right now, huh?
Yeah.
So thank you, Sup Connect, for letting me do these interviews. If your friends didn't get to hear Morgan, you'll want them to. So this gets recorded. It goes right away to IGTV, and then we'll put it on Sup Connect's YouTube and KT Outside my YouTube within the next couple of days. So other people can catch all this great information and hear your great stories. You're amazing.
Cool. Thank you for inviting me. I really appreciate it.
And I'm glad you said yes right off the bat. That's so funny that I assumed you were going to say no.
You made me feel relevant. It made me feel special. So thank you.
Oh, you are. You're amazing. And thanks for all you do. Keep doing it.
Right, Kristen. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care. Bye, everybody.
Okay, bye.